Hello and welcome to Who's On Next, the podcast where we discuss things. Today I have with me a voice actor who's known for doing the voice of Starscream for the War for Cybertron series on Netflix and for Rooster Teeth. He's been in Jojo's Bizarre Adventure. He's in the upcoming Cuphead show as Mugman. It is Frank Todaro.
Hey, what's going on? Thank you so much for having me.
Not much. How have you been doing today?
I've been all right, hiding in a tiny box covered in blankets and foam and all sorts of weird Christmas lights. It's sort of, I'm not sure if I'm in our reality or another, but that's our kind of job, I guess, isn't it?
What, being trapped in a small box for hours?
Yeah, losing all sense of self. It's not even bigger on the inside. It's just a blanket for it.
Is it one of
It's
the
warm and cozy.
Do you have a booth with like a little window in it? Do you have like one of those? Because I've seen those before.
Oh gosh, no. When I'm in here, the world can be completely decimated in some horrible apocalyptic circumstance, kind of like today, and I wouldn't know it. It is a home-built thing with all kinds of, I don't know, jerry-rigged clips and blankets and sound mumbo jumbo and technical terms. It's technical, man. It's technical.
Yeah, I've got like two, like the sliding like wooden door frames that you can use like for like dressing rooms and things like that. I have those, but
cool.
they're thick walls of acoustic foam that you can like fold up, and I have them curved around my
Nice.
desk. So
Ah,
I don't have a walk-in booth, but I have two walls that basically make my desk into a booth. So
any port in the store, man. If it works, it works. That's really it. As long as you get that sound. I got right outside the booth. Gosh, I think it was Think Geek that made them. I forget. It's a panel from the original Enterprise.
what?
So every time I walk in, it goes. Shh.
Oh, it does the like it does that sound effect.
Yes, it does.
Oh,
Yes, it
that's
does.
amazing.
I've taken to calling this the bridge. So whenever I have to go record, I'm like, I'll be on the bridge. And I get to go in. Now the problem is sometimes it'll go because that's when the ghosts pass by. Because this place is haunted.
Oh, so it does it. It does. So sometimes it'll screw up a little bit, or like there'll be an audio
Yeah.
problem with it.
It's a motion sensor. So if there's like an interdimensional Bigfoot walking through our apartment, it'll pick that up because it can sense the ethereal plane. What are we talking about again?
I don't know. I just asked how you were doing.
I'm doing all right.
There's a Bigfoot walking around my apartment. I don't know where he is, but sometimes he takes things out of the cupboard. I don't know where
There's
he came
something on the wing. Kind of makes its own gravy, doesn't it?
It's like I don't know. I don't think the rent accommodates for invisible Bigfoot in the apartment.
No. Especially if he's some freeloader, not even paying for rent. I mean, like, it's cool. You can live here, Harry, but like, do some laundry.
You're gonna go into the laundry room next time, and you're just gonna see a floating towel, like just
Hey.
like in midair.
But if I have to pull invisible hair out of the drain, God, I wonder if Drano would affect that. I wonder if like interdimensional vibrational differences or what differences? Differences. I'm a voice actor. I wonder if that would break that down. Yeah, that's dead.
Well, I mean, it'd be at a point. Well, imagine being a plumber and going over to someone's house and seeing and finding invisible clumps of hair in the drain.
Gosh. Or not finding. That's even worse. I mean, it looks clear. I've got the little camera thing on the Houdooly Hitchy. There's nothing there.
I hate the idea of touching, like feeling hair but not being able to see it. Oh, I hate that
my
idea
God.
so much. Just the idea of
That is
wet
a new
hair but you
thing.
can't see it.
It's a new terror. You've just destroyed your listeners. They now have nightmare fuel for weeks. Right on.
Let's just make this the podcast. Let's just make this 30 minutes
I
of
dig it.
talking about the invisible Bigfoot that lives in your apartment.
God, yes. Oh Lord.
So anyway, I guess we'll just get this started. So I guess
Sounds good.
in I guess in the grand scope of your career, like what is it that got you interested in doing voiceover?
Oh gosh. Well, we were just talking about before this, of course, men of the old greats, Alan Oppenheimer and Frank Welker and Greg Berger, all the people from the cartoons I watched. But realistically, I'm an only child. So I talked to myself a lot as a kid. And in order to make sure that everything stayed in order, I'd have to make different voices. So I figured, why not pay the rent with that? That was a terrible answer. Yeah, I don't know. I used to do a bunch of stuff. I was in radio and whatnot. I did definitely have an aha moment, if that's what you're getting at, for like, I want to be a voice actor. Because I did like stage stuff and improv and whatever. Like everybody, diversifies.
Yeah.
And I remember a moment being in my parents' house in the '90s. I'm old. I'm born in '77, so I watched all these things when they were actually on TV. And it was the late '90s. I was like home from college, and I had finally made the realization that Scott McNeil did like 105 of the different characters on Beast Wars, because I loved Beast Wars. That's my big secret, is that really not a secret if you look at my apartment. I'm a big Transformers fan way before this. Like I've gone to the conventions for 20 years and stuff, and I used to host BotCon as another as a Transformers convention since the '90s and all. Just a couple of them, a couple towards the end. And but yeah, I remember looking in the mirror, standing in the bathroom, and like, oh my God, it's Rat Trap and Dinobot and Silverbolt and Waspinator, and that's what I want to do. And it had always been in the back burner of my mind, when like you probably did too, like everybody did. When I was a little kid, I had one of those tape recorders, the big ones with the handle that goes ka-chunk when you move it back and forth. And I used to make little radio plays and stuff. I didn't know they were radio plays. So I would have the kids over from up and down the block, and the girls would want to play house. I'm like, okay, fine, but I want to tape record it. I invite girls over and I record them. But like I would say, well, let's play house, right? And I'd be the dad, but like I was obsessed with like the Cosby Show or like sitcoms. So she would come in like, this is my new boy. I got a new boyfriend. Oh, how ugly is he? So there's all these cassettes that my mom has. It's me at like 5 and 6 years old, thinking I'm hilarious, mind you. Doing these little things, and the more I just loved doing it. It was so much fun. So it was an early start, and then what am I going to do with life? And then wait, that's what I wanted to do. So yeah, and there's a bunch of other meanders throughout. I had a radio show for about 10 years, and a bunch of stuff, just like everyone.
When did the radio show like happen? Like what period of time was that?
It ended not too long ago. It was 2010, I believe. March of 2010 was the first episode, and it was terrestrial some places and turned into a podcast. It was called The Invisible World, and it was about science and paranormal, which is probably why Bigfoot popped in my head right away. But yeah, it went for about 10 years, and I moved to California in 2017. I'm from New York, so I was doing most voice acting and stuff out of New York. I'm a Queens kid. If anybody out there, Queens in the audience, right on, Flushing, Queens. Yeah. So it went on for about 10 years. I don't think all of them survived. I think some of them are still in iTunes, but they're saved somewhere. I don't know what I'm going to do with them.
Were you ever like a big unsolved, like you hear that? Were you ever like a big unsolved mysteries person? Because I'm like huge into that kind of stuff, like the weird, disappear, like people that disappear. Like the best episodes to me were always the ghost stories, like the weird paranormal, like there's this great one that they did in the original Unsolved Mysteries. It was like a ghost ship where like you could like it was like a ship used during war times or something like that, and there's like tons of stories of like different experiences on that ship.
Oh yeah, I ate that stuff up. I'm with you, man. I loved the just the UFO phenomenon, but mostly talking to people that are connected to it. Because whatever you believe, they genuinely believe this, and it is fascinating just to hear their stories. Part of what I used to do but how the radio show started was it was this kind of play on getting people to admit I don't know. Right. People are very afraid of the term I don't know. Right. So I would have the physics professor, the guy from NASA, and then I'd have someone who takes alien implants out of people's forearms, So to kind of like get everybody's stories, because those people believe their stories. So just collect stories, collect stories. So it was very self-serving because I get entertained by the whole thing, but it was a lot of fun.
Like I mean, I think it also helps with. I mean, I guess bringing it full circle with Unsolved Mysteries because Robert Stack was Ultra Magnus in the Transformers movie, so I guess it just kind of comes.
Absolutely, he
full circle with
was.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, well, he's a kind of guy where it's like you hear Robert Stack, you could just hear him talk about anything. He just had a very articulate way of speaking.
Oh my God.
Like it's just, he had such a great voice.
He could read the phone book, and it would probably sound some sort of entertaining. That was terrible. God, I can never get over that in Transformers the movie, and he's about to be attacked by Galvatron. And,
I know what you're about to bring up. Yeah.
And he's, you know what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
When he's like, open, damn it.
Yeah.
You're supposed to open the Matrix in your darkest hour. So the darkest hour of the Transformers race is you maybe getting hurt. And the original, I'm just going to go deep tracks here for Transformers. In the original animatics for that scene, the sweeps tie ropes around. Do you know this?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever heard about this part, actually.
Oh, my God. So it gets dark. It gets dark. Let me go down a hole here. So they have these
they cut a bunch of stuff from that movie, like from the original concept of the film.
If you can imagine it darker, it was. So the sweeps come. They these little laser lassos. They tie one around each arm and one around each leg.
Oh
and
no! They like
Galvatron
13th century, like 13th century, like tortured like the horses. Like they tie the arms up.
So he says, sweeps, draw and quarter them. They fly up, they tear him. That's why he's in pieces. And also, if you notice in the animation, the original animation stayed where he he shoots him instead, right?
Yeah.
But the Matrix falls down in his hand. It doesn't arc. It falls like as though it's from the sky. So your brain kind of, pieces together. Oh, it probably just popped out, I guess. I don't know, maybe hit a rock. And no, that's because he was supposed to be in the sky being torn apart while he's alive.
Oh, my God.
And, yeah, poor Robert Stack. That's,
Well, it's so funny because I always thought it was so weird that he gets shot one time and he explodes. Like, I just always thought that was so weird. Well, because Optimus gets shot like 8 times in that movie and he doesn't explode.
Well, he's got the power of being the main good guy, until they need him to die. Then he turns gray and everybody cries.
You've heard the story of how like originally that opening scene had like, I think like the thing I'd always heard was that there was going to be originally like a tunnel scene where there was going to be like 7 or 8 of the characters were just going to get killed off. Like they were just going to get like shot down like in this like tunnel or something like that.
There's a lot of dark stuff. A lot of dark stuff in there.
Oh yeah, no, I could talk about Transformers like all day. Like I'm a huge Transformers nut.
Oh geez, we can just do that for an hour, man.
I think one of the biggest honors I've ever had was I interviewed Jack Angel a few years ago.
Cool.
Yeah, no, and I remember I think it's just the ultimate honor to me is just getting to talk to someone who's been doing voiceover for like 50 years. Like met Mel Blanc and Dawes Butler. Like that's crazy to me. Like to get to talk to someone like that.
Yep. God, all of those, the old guard. Like I say the old guard because there's like a reverence. This is like looking at deities, right?
Yeah,
like him,
like Michael Bell, and like the living the people that are still alive, like Bell and Jack Angel and Cullen and Welker and
the unifying thing between all of them and the Beast Wars crew too. That all these guys, right? David Kaye, one of the nicest human beings, and Gary. They're all super, super kind. They're all just wonderful human beings. And that's why they're still out there. They're still in the trenches doing this stuff because they're just awesome people. And it's a testament to how in this business, because Hollywood gets this stigma around the world, but our community is just maybe I just look at the world through rose-colored glasses, but just full of just kind, generous, giving people. Helping each other out through this pandemic. My God, is there a better illustration of people coming together? Just wonderful. Yeah, yeah. Sorry to go on a soapbox there, but just when I was just starting out, there were you talk to these guys at conventions, and I have these vivid memories of like walking up to Greg Berger and be like, "Excuse me, can I give you my demo? I made it myself." And he was like, "No, no, not unless I can give you mine." And going up to his dorm room. Geez, what are we in college? His hotel room, and coming back and giving it to me. So many, yeah, yeah. It's a wonderful model of how to stay kind and still be successful.
Well, yeah, and it's crazy to me that so much of the old guard from like the 70s and 80s is still alive. Like just
Yeah,
some of those
me
people
too.
like Alan Oppenheimer, like we were talking before we even started this interview, like Oppenheimer's been doing this since like oh god, like he's been doing on-screen and voiceover since like the 60s.
Hmm. Yeah.
And still does. Like he's still like if they ask him to do Skeletor for something, he'll do it. Like at like 91 years old.
I think he is in the upcoming one on
He
Netflix. I think
is.
he's playing Moss Man.
Yeah, they're having him play, which I
Yeah,
love. I love that. I always love when they
it's
do
so
like
great.
the new reboots and they still find a way
Yeah.
to implement one of the old actors in some
God,
way.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I got a chance to like I said at the beginning, he was one of my big inspirations between Skeletor and Falcor and lots of ores. And I was at this convention. I was a guest at a convention, and so was he, which is like mind blowing because this is Alan Oppenheimer. So I saw him standing there, and here's me, like I've turned into like a 7-year-old kid, and I'm sheepishly walking up to him, and I'm like, "Sir, yeah, I just want to say you're part of the reason why I'm here right now." And like I'm thinking he's gonna be like, "Ah, that's great, right?" Like he stopped, he shook my hand, he pulled me in, we had a conversation, and it was like, "Oh man, I'm gonna remember this now for the rest of my life. This is
Yeah.
what an amazing human being." Yeah, yeah, I can just hear swap stories with you about all these people. Mike McConaughey was like, again, like 10, 20 years ago when I met him at a convention as a little kid who was like, little kid, but 20 something, just starting out. He gave me advice that I, in turn, credit him and give to people to this day. And now you get to be in things with these people. You see your names on the credits together. It doesn't matter how many things you do, how many awesome stuff that you're allowed to do. You never lose that kind of wonder of looking at these titans and then having scotch with them once in a while. It's insane, Like it never is not mind blowing, and we're just very lucky.
Well, I think it's one of the reasons I love doing this podcast because I mean now that I'm doing this, I get to talk to animators and voice actors, and I do a bunch of stuff
Yeah.
with this podcast. It's just cool to get to sit and talk to someone
Yeah.
that either you're a fan of their work or just it's some kind of way just talk to them for like 30 40 minutes 2 hours even
Hmm.
sometimes just hang out with them
Yeah.
just ask them questions or you find out you both have super common interests and you just
Yeah.
like talk about that for like 40 minutes like
Yeah. You just talk about Bigfoot and clogged drains and beef stew recipes. Yeah.
I don't know
Man.
I don't know shit about cooking so I can't talk about beef stew.
Jeez. God, we have become glorious cooks in the in during the pandemic out of necessity. Uh, Gosh, the things I can do with an Instapot now. It's amazing.
I know how to make like that's the thing. I know how to make instant things, but I'm not
Mm.
that great when it comes to actually like making a complicated dish. I'm not a
Mm.
Ramsay type cook.
Gosh, I just learned last Christmas. My family, I come from an Italian family. We have pizza, like homemade pizza on Christmas Eve. And
Ooh.
since my family's back in New York, I had to make it. And I'd never done it from scratch before because we couldn't find dough. So I gotta say, since then, I think I've made about 12 pizzas. Like it's fun. Like once I realized, oh, I feel like a wizard. I'm putting things in a cauldron, and it's science for hungry people. And yeah, yeah, it's great talking to the yeast, telling it to feed my pretties as you put the sugar in and stuff. And Rise.
Make my yeast grow. It's like that kind
Oh
of
my God! It's got a Power Rangers reference. Nice.
We're going all out. We're gonna
God.
throw in some Snorks references, some Beetleborgs.
Oh yeah.
We're gonna throw in
Nice.
like 40 things that most people
A little
don't
bit
get.
of Turbo Teen. Yeah, I dig it. Gosh.
Let's throw in was it Silverhawks? Let's throw in some really old things.
Gosh. When is that getting a reboot?
Yeah, I was just thinking, when's that
Thundercats
getting
and
a
Masters.
reboot?
God. I was obsessed, and I still am obsessed. What's the word? How do you speak English? With the Rankin and Bass Hobbit. Like it was like my first book was the little see and read book that came with the record player. And I remember when Thundercats came out, and you see Slythe, and I was like, that's Gollum. Wait, that's God. It was like the style, like, blew your mind. And Silverhawks came out, and they all had the same little eyelashes and everything. Man, do I love those things. Gosh.
I only found out like a few years ago. I did not know that was Rankin Bass until like a few years ago, because it's like the least Rankin Bass thing I think they've ever made.
The Silverhawks?
No, well, I mean Thundercats and Silverhawks, like both of those kind of things.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you know them only for the holiday specials, which I think most people do, like it's not something you would think that Rankin Bass would be involved in. Would be something like Thundercats.
For me, it was the other way around, because like that book was one of my first. It came out the year I was born, so I would stare at that, and that was my gateway into like sword and sorcery, Dragonlance, and all. We don't want to start talking about Dungeons and Dragons. We'll be here all day. And that's how Rankin Bass. There was the little symbol on the back and everything, and I didn't make the connection that was all of those Christmas specials when Burl Ives is singing to me. That is also Rankin Bass. Oh wow! So it was the other way around, only because of what I was exposed to first, you know. But yeah, gosh, I'm forgetting the name of the animation studio, but you know what I'm talking about. Just fix it in post. Just do an impression of me saying that studio is really great. So. Yeah.
I'll put in a censor beep. I'll make it sound worse.
Oh God, is really great. Oh, this is the animatic for this podcast episode. It's a lot darker. The sweeps are gonna disembowel me or something.
I remember when I think like the second episode I did, second or third, it was Jim Meskimen who.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I remember we had like a talk about Thundercats because he was a character designer, I believe, on Thundercats, and I remember we like just talked about how like he's always been in Thundercats in some way, because like every time they've rebooted it, he's always like found a way to like do a voice in it or something like that. Because I think I remember him.
My
saying,
jaw
like,
is literally dropped. Yeah. I did not know that. That is so cool.
Yeah, like
oh my God.
I remember when Thundercats, like we were talking about Thundercats Roar, because that had like just come out, and I talked to him about it, and he was like, "Yeah, I told him I worked on the original Thundercats, and from there I was in." Like it was like that kind of thing, and I think it was the same thing with the 2011 show, from what I remember, because he did a couple voices on that.
Oh, so good. That was so good. Man, it's one of the many shows. You've got the 2011, right? Thundercats.
Yeah, that's a great show.
That one and Pirates of Darkwater. If you ever watched Pirates of Darkwater back in the day.
I think all I know about Pirates of Darkwater was I think Tim Curry was in it. That's all I know about it.
Yeah, he was. Oh God, I forget his name. He had the peg leg. He was like the Shmee of Bluff and his ship. Yeah, but they were both shows. Brilliant shows, really kind of balancing the tugging of the heartstrings and stuff too. Thundercats more so. I still like cry even thinking about those when Wile E. Kid is playing her flute with the elephants and she plays the song of her dead whatever. Like where they're collecting something, we know how many things they got to collect, and then it gets the can before they finish collecting the things. I just want someone out there to produce this like Pirates of Darkwater Thundercats crossover where they get their MacGuffins finally. You know, I mean, where I was invested in these shows, guys, please, and maybe I'll get to voice something. But yeah, that was I'll fold the laundry while someone else is doing it. I just want to be a part of it.
You will be the new Tim Curry on that show. You'll be the new Tim Curry.
That'd be amazing. Or Niddler. Gosh.
I mean, a lot of stuff nowadays, like they'll do like a comic or something to like finish the story. That's been like a recent trend I've noticed.
Yeah.
I remember that. Did you watch that Dark Crystal Netflix show that came out a couple years ago? Yeah. I hate that got canceled. Like, because now I think even like the people that made it are saying like they're trying to find a way to continue it because like now they're not gonna continue with the season 2. Like, which I'm thinking like they're probably just gonna do a comic probably or something of that nature.
If there was some kind of crowd-funded thing, I would, in a heartbeat, go without food for a week to donate to it. I loved it. Just the long sweeping shots of the background, the set, like, it was amazing. It was so beautiful.
The cast is like, that's like one of the best casts. That's like one of the best casts I think I've ever seen for like a Netflix thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really well done. Loved what they did with Aughra. I love Aughra. I love the Dark Crystal. I liked that a little bit more than Labyrinth. When you're a kid and so they always ask you which one you like better. Just a hair more. I do love my Ludo, but yeah, that was really well done, and just so beautiful, and all of those practical effects are just. Yeah, it was mind-blowing. It was really sad finding out that wasn't getting renewed.
I remember in Atlanta they have a puppet museum, which is like a history of puppetry, and they've had a Jim Henson exhibit there for a while, and that was the only reason I wanted to go because I'm a diehard Muppet fan. And they had some of the Skeksis puppets at the exhibit, and those things are huge. Like when you see them in person, like they're like 6 feet, 7 feet tall. Like those.
And Chamberlain aged well too. He looks pretty good. Some of those puppets, not so much. But like, he's looking good. They brought it over here to I forget the museum, but it was not too far away. And we rushed over to stand next to these things, and they had, I think, like the Goblin King's. His outfit from like the ballroom scene and stuff.
They had that in the museum. I know the theater, the Museum of the Moving Image in New York, I know has a giant Jim Henson exhibit, like a giant one.
That is the reason why I would go there. I used to live in Astoria for about 15 years, which is right next to Long Island City, where that is, or part of it, whatever. And it was a permanent exhibit. Absolutely gorgeous. I'm obsessed with the Muppets. I know like everything we talk about, we're like, oh yeah, let's do. But yeah, you and I are supposed to be friends because like right now there is they got Kermit and Fozzie on my desk. They sat on the dashboard of our car as we drove across country to move here in the first place. We even made a detour to find a fork in the road. Somewhere down like near St. Louis, I think. I forget where, in Missouri.
Did you look for a fork in the road just to go like, make sure you make a turn at that fork in the road there, Fozzie? Like, did you do that just to do that?
Yep. There was a lot of dug-a-dun as we were driving.
I mean, I guess back on the questions. There's a question I really like.
Sorry, it's funny. Oh yeah, it's an interview.
Oh no, there. I forget what episode it was, but there was one where it was literally just 2 hours, and I think we just stopped the interview like 30 minutes in, and we just started shooting the shit for like an hour and a half, not even asking questions anymore. But
sounds good to me.
But I guess this is something I love asking voice actors is that what's if there's a type of character you've always wanted to play, or like an established, already like known role, like a Daffy Duck, like what's a character you've always wanted to play?
Oh gosh, short answer, Starscream, but did that. See you later, man. You know what? That's actually not a terrible answer because I've Cobra Commander. I would love to take a hack at Cobra Commander if that's ever possible. It's different. It's a bit different than Starscream. They always kind of like get lumped in. Really hits those S's very hard. But that's great. I mean, of course, any of the Looney Tunes, but the people who are doing those right now are amazing. God. But yeah, I don't know. If they ever did, because I know they did it once or twice. I'm going to give like kind of like a half cop out, half like wishful thinking answer. I mentioned it earlier. Dragonlance. It was a book series based in the Dungeons and Dragons umbrella, and I know they made a cartoon of it in the past. I think Kiefer Sutherland was in that. But if they ever redid something connected to Dragonlance in either like an animated or video game form, I would love to take a hack at some of those characters. Definitely keep those in the back of my mind. A lot of the characterizations from that book series when when doing various video games and orcs and dwarves and stuff. So that'd be cool. But again, it's a selfish thing just because I want that to exist. I want that cartoon. I want them to animate. A friend and I used to talk about when we were kids how we want to take all of our Excalibur comics and pay some animation studio to make a cartoon out of it. We don't care what it looks. It's just do that. So yeah, things that I'm a fan of, I guess.
I've always found it really bizarre that there hasn't really been another Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, at least like a major production. Because you would think, because it's still just as popular it was like 30 years ago. Like I'd argue it might be more popular now than it's ever been in the last decade.
Yes.
So I just always found it bizarre that they haven't like attempted another movie or another show of some kind.
I think we must have all died in 2012 because there's so much awesome stuff that is now like popular, so they make more of it. Like all the stuff that got us pushed into lockers and back in the 80s and 90s are now like big budget everything, and we get to work in them.
Geeks rule the world now. Like that's the whole
man
thing.
Alive. But I mean, like, it is kind of ironic though. You get pushed into locker as a kid, and now I like select to stay in a closet all day. So of my own volition. So like I said,
I'm home.
Apple tree, not too far. Yeah, right. But it's a warm locker, and that means comfort. It's very warm in the summer, not well ventilated. I should probably do something about that.
It's like, I think with something I've always wanted to do, I mean, Starscream has always been a big thing for me because that's one of my favorite characters. But I'm trying to
as it should be.
say, like, I don't know, like, I can do like traditional Starscream. I can do like my own version, but as a kid, I always tried to just be like,
Yes, Lord Megatron, that kind of Starscream.
like that. I've always loved it's just because I love that voice so much. That's like one of my favorite voices on the planet.
And you do it very well.
Again, I tried to. I'm much more traditional if I do Starscream because I think it's because everyone's so familiar with that version. Because I think Steve Bloom's is amazing. I think that's like my favorite.
Great, yeah.
Steve's is my favorite version, but like Lada's is the one that I think I go to when I try to do it.
Yeah, I love what he did in Prime. I mean, that whole show, the voice cast of that was just fucking chef's kiss. Pardon my French there. Oh no, we can curse on this, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that was an amazing show. And same thing with animated. Did you watch animated?
Yeah, me and some friends.
That was a killer cast.
Me and some friends binged it not too long ago. I mean, it's Derek J. Wyatt, and I love everything he does. The director,
good God,
or
yes.
at least the character designer. I love everything he does. Like I love
Mm-hmm.
his weird, angular anime-ish types of character designs. Because he was also, I think he was one of the head character designers for Teen Titans. I think was like another thing he did. Which makes a lot of sense if you go back to Teen Titans.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. He's a god. He is a planet-sized god.
well, I think
Not Unicron. The other one's Primus. Yeah.
I've always liked with Transformers in that with Optimus, everyone tries to be traditional, or they try to come close to what Peter did. Because he's so iconic in the role. But I've always found it so interesting. Yeah. Megatron has like never been consistent. I think anytime anyone's ever done it. Like I think every Megatron has been unique in its own way.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying every Optimus hasn't been unique, but everyone is clearly trying to take a little bit from Peter Cullen, but like every Megatron I've ever heard, nobody tries to be like Starscream. Like no one tries to mimic that. Like everyone everyone does their own thing.
Even Frank Welker in Prime, that's a very different Megatron. He's scary.
Thing. Yeah.
He's genuinely scary in that. And it's not just the jagged teeth.
He did more like a tyrant Megatron than he did like a screaming behemoth Megatron.
It's amazing.
It's like
it was a good show.
What is it like Corey Burton's Megatron in animated is like the furthest thing from the original Megatron that Frank did. Like it's cold and it's quiet and like.
Well, Jason gets a bit of that in. I know like Jason's... he wasn't going on purpose.
Yeah.
It just kind of is the way that it naturally came. Because and a lot of people will be like, well, where did you use a bit of Elrond? The name's escaping me.
Oh,
Hugo Weaving. Did you use Hugo Weaving? Did you do this? And he like Jason, he wasn't a big Transformers fan before it, right? Like a lot of times when we're doing something, he'll call me up like, all right, Frank, what is this thing? What is what's a Victor Sugma? And I have to
Well, in episode 63, in the UK comic, or the Ladybird issues.
Start telling them about Death's Head. Yeah. So it just happened to kind of come out that way because of the characterization. It's good writing, There's the bones are there to get to that place. So if it sounds familiar, then it's because the character is familiar. And the kind of molding of these things, like Starscream, is very different between the different series that I've played him in. Just the way that the character's crafted, so he sounds different, Yeah, lots of moving parts, wheels within wheels.
I mean, I could hear a bit of Hugo and Jason's because Hugo's Megatron was very like Starscream, like it was much more like bassy than the other ones were.
Yeah, there's a lot of texture there.
Yeah, and it's funny because have you ever heard the story of how Hugo Weaving felt about the Transformers movies? Like,
oh, what do you mean?
Oh, he did not give a shit about Transformers at all. Like I think there's an interview from him like around the time after the third movie came out, and they just interviewed him about how he got into the recording process, and he basically was just like, I didn't care. Like he was just like, I don't care what a Megatron or a Starscream is. Like I don't care. Like.
I mean, from a certain standpoint, you can't really blame him though, because he didn't grow up with Transformers. He's a bit older than we are, Well, so I mean,
I've always found it so funny that he said that because watching those movies, he doesn't phone it in really with his Megatron. No. That's what I always found so interesting is that he doesn't like bullshit it or like just play like a bored Megatron. Like he does pretty good with what he was given. For someone who didn't really care.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I guess that also says a lot about Hugo Weaving as an actor, is the other thing.
He's just a very good actor. I mean, you can, again, read the phone book and make it sound, interesting and engaging. I loved Charlie Adler's take on Starscream.
Well, you put, put that on paper. That's a fantastic casting choice.
Yeah, I mean, whatever people say about the movies, this is the thing where like it's very easy to just kind of be like, oh, well, that's not good because it's not like what I remember as a kid. People complain about the various iterations over the last 20 years, but that's someone else's G1. There's a kid who saw that for the first time. And see, oh, well, that's what Megatron sounds like. Well, this is what Bumblebee doesn't talk, So those things bridge over. There's other media that reflect that, take it out. It worked in Prime very well, but there's a G1 for everyone in every iteration of a franchise. So it's you gotta keep that in mind, I think what they did with those things, they did with the voices even, they were good, It was jarring to hear, Jazz says something very rude, I think, to the humans right away. But yeah, I mean, There you go.
Yeah, no, I mean, I personally enjoy the movies. I would not call them good, but like that's I think as a whole, like I just go into them because they're exactly what I expected. That's what I tell people with the Bay movies. Is I'm like, they're exactly what I expected. It's a Bay Transformers movie. It's just a big dumb action movie with robots. Like it's exactly what I wanted it to be, and that's what I got. And I enjoy them. Like
I love Starship Troopers. It is nothing like the book. There's probably somebody out there being like, "Excuse me," like this is completely different. I love that movie because I watched it in the theaters, and there were big giant bugs and moral dilemmas, and Doogie Howser says it's afraid when he does something terrible, and it's great. It's a great movie,
Oh, that's
but again,
that's the thing. It's just fun. Like that's like it's exactly what you expect it to be. Like that's the thing. I don't know. I guess I've always just been that thing where like when people are so ridiculously harsh on like the Transformers movies or the G.I. Joe movies or things like that, I'm like, I don't know. It's exactly what I expected it to be. So I guess that's why I'm just not that harsh on them. Like. They're exactly what I wanted.
I think you can find something to like about anything. And if you already go into something deciding that you don't want to like it because of some other reason, there's nothing wrong with that. But just understand that that's what you're doing, But yeah, I don't know. You live a happier lifestyle, I guess, that way.
Yeah, it's like I know people that don't care for superhero movies, and I know a ton of people that love superhero movies. Like... That's the thing. Like, I know people that just don't give a shit about comics, or they just don't give a shit about superheroes. Like, I mean, I personally do, but like, I could see why someone like might not be able to get into that kind of stuff. I know people that can't get into Transformers because they think it's stupid. Like, that's the thing. Yeah. I get the mindset. Like, I could like. Transformers is kind of dumb, but I love it because I just love the lore and I love the characters, but I could see someone thinking like He-Man or Transformers is stupid from an outside perspective. Like
it's all like, what was your gateway into this genre too? Because you can talk about Transformers as a high concept science fiction about a silicon-based alien life form of spherical souls that inhabit like the more you describe it, it sounds like really cool, and then you watch it and it's Transformers, right?
Yeah.
But it again, like that's something like He-Man. I loved He-Man as a kid. Again, I was the target audience for that, and because of He-Man, right? Maybe I wouldn't have gotten into Frazetta so much if I didn't have He-Man and Conan and all of these things to like all of the sci-fi fantasy genre, the things when they combine together. Man-at-Arms has a laser gun and He-Man's wearing a loincloth holding a sword. I think they all have fur loincloths. It's a weird time in Eternia. And that was my gateway towards that. So the Ewoks are the best example. I love Ewoks. I love Ewoks. I will say that on top of a mountain. Frank Thomas, Saverio Todaro, love Ewoks. Now, the reason I love Ewoks is because in 1983, I was like 5 or 6 years old, and I still love my teddy bear, but all the other kids are telling me that I probably shouldn't love my teddy bear. Here comes these cannibal teddy bears that eat people, roast them in their synthetic clothing because it seals in the flavor, and they defeated the Empire. So now I'm allowed to love my teddy bear again, And I'm sure there was something in the back of my mind, because I unironically love the Ewok movies too. And it's because of when I was exposed to it. And also because Ewoks are awesome. They're like tree hobbits. They're amazing. Ewoks, there's something that should come back. They should do another Ewoks. That cartoon was wonderful. I have a little Nisa action figure outside with a little pink thing we made in a vintage collection. But yeah, so you can never. It's never a judgment of quality, or there are higher things that you can critique in a sort of educated way, I suppose, about different media, but it doesn't denote value. So there's always going to be some kid out there that's watching this. You need to be a kid. It can be anybody that sees something and they're like, wow, that has broadened my horizons. And now I want to go read more and find more and investigate this more because I'm interested. So that's why I always shy away from things like that. And yeah, I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. Well, it's like you had the Ewoks as a kid. Like, I love Jar Jar Binks. Like because Phantom Menace came out when I was like 3 or 4 years old, and that's
oh, geez, I'm older than you. Good God, I'm so much older than you.
Yeah, it's like
I'm like our age. Yeah. God, I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no. It's like Phantom Menace came out when I was like 4 years old. So it's like, but Jar Jar was a kind of character that was meant to appeal to kids. And to this day, I still don't mind Jar Jar. Like, I still don't mind the character. I still enjoy him. Like, it's the same kind of thing. Like, I see people that are like, Jar Jar's the worst thing about Star Wars. I'm like, yeah, but he wasn't made for adults. He was made for the kids that are there to see the movie. Like, that's the whole reason he exists.
And I can understand how, like, when I went and saw Jar Jar, he wasn't my favorite character. You know, I didn't rage against him but like many other people did. But in the same way, I can imagine a 20-something, because I think Phantom Menace came out, what?
99.
Is it 99? Yeah, so I was just finishing college. Because I remember standing online. I was one of those people for that first showing in the freezing cold. And I can imagine a 20-year-old person in 1983 going in, expecting the deep pathos of Empire Strikes Back, getting that here and there, and then a bunch of teddy bears come out, yub nub, and win the day. Like, I understand that. I just think it's empirically wrong because Ewoks are awesome, and that is ingrained in my genetics right now. I am also an episode 2 apologist. I every time someone speaks ill of the prequels, I get on my soapbox, which is so unusual, and talk about how Dexter Jettster is the best character in the Star Wars franchise. Fucking love him.
I mean,
I swear, yeah.
I personally don't care for Attack of the Clones. I love the third act of Attack of the Clones. I literally, when I was like 6 years old, I played that third act of Attack of the Clones so much that the movie got so scratched up on the DVD that the only thing that worked was the third act. I couldn't watch any of the rest of the movie. I could only watch the third act of that movie anymore. So I was like, I literally would never watch the movie. I think I spent a decade of my life never having seen the full movie since I saw it in theaters because I loved that third act so much.
Oh my God, that's awesome, man. That is awesome.
Yeah, no, I just remember, I think, like, I was visiting someone's, like, a family member's house, and they had Attack of the Clones, and I was like, I haven't seen this whole movie in, like, a decade, so maybe, like, when I was, like, 6 years old, so maybe I should watch this again, and I watched it, and I was like, I don't like this, but, man, the third act is still awesome. Like, it's the thing. Like,
oh, my Lord.
It's like, Phantom Menace was always the one where I was very mixed on it for a long time, and it wasn't until I think Rise of Skywalker came out, and a day or two later, because I didn't care for Rise of Skywalker at all, and I decided I'm going to go back to Phantom Menace, because I want to see, like, a side-by-side here. Like,
yeah.
So I watched Phantom Menace, and I was like, that was more entertaining than I remember it being when I was rewatching Phantom Menace. Like, I wouldn't call it a great movie, but I get like Transformers. I'd call it a fun movie. I think that's the best way to describe it. I wouldn't call it great, but I'd call it a very entertaining movie. It's a popcorn movie.
Yeah, I mean, like different types and different types of entertainment scratch a different itch that you need. Sometimes you just want to watch things blow up. Sometimes you want to check your brain at the door. Sometimes you want an in-depth political thriller, and yeah, man. Like what you're describing about your third act thing, that's like me and Ghostbusters. So another fandom that I'm obsessed with is Ghostbusters. And when I was
What
a
you
kid,
would watch? You watch the Stay Puft Gozer thing like all the time as a kid.
well, that same cassette recorder that I was talking about earlier, I held it up to the TV because VCRs had just come out.
I did the same thing with
that's
my
how old I am.
phone when I was like
You did?
11
God.
years old. I did the same thing with my phone sometimes. I would just
With
record
your
the
phone.
Yeah.
God, I am like dust. Jesus Christ. Stick a fork in me. Yeah, so yes, my friend Nayati was over, and we held the cassette recorder up to the TV because you had a VCR, but you couldn't tape off of things. That's just crazy. So we played that, and in the soundtrack are bits in soundtrack in the audio in this long audio tape. There's gaps. There's my mother coming in. There's being called to dinner. There's all these other things. So now to this day, when I watch Ghostbusters, and he said, Venkman says this particular line, I'll hear like Frankie in my head because that's what happens because I listen to it over and over and over and over again. Yeah.
You gave me vivid memories when I was like 11. I had a shitty little MP3 player, like a little tiny little MP3 player.
Yeah, sweet.
And I remember I used to record songs and audio from the computer on it. And you just popped a memory in my head of I remember I recorded a Bob Seger song on my MP3 player, and I distinctly remember there being a bit where my dad yells like, "Did you get your homework done?" Like when I was recording that, and I like paused it and I kept that in the recording, and you just made me remember that like when you were talking about that. I was like, God, that was so long. That was like when I was like 11, 10 years old when I did that. Like,
I just love that you're an 11, 10-year-old listening to Bob Seger. That's awesome, dude. Gosh.
Yeah, no, I didn't really get into music until I was like a teenager, but I think I just remembered I heard old time rock and roll and I was like, I like that song. I want that song. I don't know what that song is. I just really want that song on my MP3 player.
Now it's really old time rock and roll.
I mean, I guess there's something I was kind of curious about when I was going through your filmography because there was something I saw that kind of has an infamous reputation on the internet.
Oh.
Have you?
What's that?
Because I noticed you were credited for a game called Ride to Hell, is what the game was called.
Oh, yeah. That was when I was back in New York. I did that, right?
Yeah.
Ride to Hell Retribution.
Yeah. So, do you have any memories of like recording for that or like any of the story behind that? Because that game kind of has a really interesting history behind it. Like if you remember anything about it.
That was a long time ago. Man, I just got through telling you how old I was. Jesus. I mean, I gotta be honest. I don't know that I've ever actually played it. I usually try to like it's one of those things where like normally when I'm in a show, I am like in a show. I'm like wearing the T-shirt. I love it. I become a fan of the things. But that was. I don't think I had a PlayStation at the time. I think maybe I'm wrong, but I think I had Xbox and that was a PlayStation game or something like that. Invisimals was something like that. I did that with this at the same studio, so I might be confusing the two. Invisimals was another video game about 15 years ago, I think. Yeah, I don't have any unusual stories. I can make one up. I mean, so there was this interdimensional international Bigfoot. Flew in from England to record us. Why? What is the reputation for that game?
Oh, the reputation is that that game is basically gained the reputation of in the past decade. I think it's called one of the worst games of the past 10 years.
Oh, great. Thanks. This interview's over. That one voice guy, that Greasy Pete guy. God, fucking hell.
Yeah, it's just that I just saw that in your credits, and I'm like, I wonder if he remembers that, because that game has
think
over
I might
the years
have
garnered a very like notable reputation because of that.
I think I remember something where like it was about like the gameplay of driving or something like that, or yeah, because you're going back and forth on a motorcycle a lot. Um, but yeah, I think I played like 6 characters in that too.
Yeah, it was basically it was like the story goes is that originally it was going to be a different kind of game. It was going to be a full open world game, and
Yes,
it disappeared for several years, and then out of nowhere in like 2013 it just reappeared as a completely different type of game, and it came out with like no fanfare, and it was I think like the worst reviewed game of the year when it came
oh
out.
boy. All right, I'm putting that on my resume.
I don't mean to bring down your spirits. it's the
Hey, if the wave goes that far down, it can only go equally back up. So it's how fluid dynamics work, right?
I mean, it's I
Stick
remember
with
one of the last interviews I did before I had this podcast back in like 2016. I interviewed a guy named Joe Kurska, and he only has I think one voiceover credit, and it was for a Sega CD game
Oh,
called
sweet.
called Wild Woody.
Whoa.
And it's gained a big internet following over the years, particularly because it has a terrible name. that's the
It's like
that's
a Conker's Bad Fur Day kind of thing.
it's no, it's about a pencil named Woody.
Oh boy.
And that's the whole that like the whole reason the game has become so popular is because of the name and how creepy the cutscenes are. But I interviewed this guy, and he like told the whole story of like how they were like building it up as like this big franchise, and there was going to be a TV show, and there were going to be t-shirts and like all this stuff. And I think he said like a month after it came out, he like walked by an electronics store and he saw all the copies of Wild Woody in a bargain bin.
Oh
Like,
gosh.
yeah.
Yeah, you never know. You never know what's gonna either that situation or just take off like a rocket.
Yeah, and it was interesting because I interviewed him basically on the stance of this guy's only ever done like one thing, but it's like a very notable like internet thing. So like it's just interesting to talk to someone who's only ever done, and he was open to it. Like he was like, yeah, sure, I'd be glad to do an interview. And I was amazed how much he remembered of it. Like he remembered like the production, he remembered like all the things about what they were planning, he remembered the sessions,
God.
like. And then he said, it's kind of sad because he had said he'd been wanting to get back into voiceover for like a decade, and he just hadn't really found the time to do it.
Gosh, you're giving me like a laundry list of things to look up after the show. That's interesting.
I mean, maybe don't watch reviews for Ride to Hell, but
Gosh, I try not to look at reviews sometimes. The don't read the comments thing.
yeah.
But once in a while, someone will send something like, "Yeah, this person's being very kind. You should check this out." And. But yeah, it's difficult to negotiate sometimes when you're like in a fandom and stuff too. But yeah, it's all a series of checks and balances.
I mean, it's the kind of
Maintain
thing
your sanity.
I think negative criticism is a good thing to hear sometimes. I think it's good to hear from both sides, but I think it kind of has to be in a certain way, I think, if it's negative. Because if it's just someone going, everything about this is shit and I hated everything about it, like that's the kind of criticism you don't want to hear. Like, I'd much rather hear someone criticize me in a much more constructive way as opposed to just bashing everything about the project. Like I think
and then that seems to be the predominant thing is just bashing everything about a project without specifics sometimes. But then it's always fun. Like I love watching like the Red Letter Media guys when they
oh my god,
dissect and they're it's like an educated analysis of this thing, and a lot of times our opinions line up, and when they don't line up, I don't feel like I'm being bullied into agreeing with Mike when he says something. Like it's just. It's almost like you're sitting down having a conversation with your friends from high school about the whatever episode of Star Trek was out or something. Like it's I do like how much they love Star Trek, particularly.
Oh my god,
I relate to that.
Oh, I adore. I was actually watching a bunch of Red Letter Media earlier. I adore Red Letter Media. It's like one of my favorite YouTube channels.
Oh yes.
Well, it's like
it's interesting.
It's YouTube criticism, but it's it's not condescending like film criticism, like I've seen some other people do. Like it's if they just don't like it, they're just like, that's shit. But they'll go into very deep detail as to why they don't enjoy it. It's not, this is garbage and I hate everything about it and the people that made it should feel terrible that they made it. Like it's all very valid criticisms that they make.
And the way that they structure their reviews, it's genuinely funny. Like when Rich Evans laughs, I laugh. Like there's a I don't know if it's just the pacing of the editing. They're very good at that. So even if they have an opinion that I don't necessarily agree with on something, and they line up more than not, it's still so entertaining to watch. And that's the kind of thing where, like, if you put thought into it, it doesn't matter necessarily the opinion that is in this critique. It's still like an entertaining kind of gosh, I don't know, I'm at a loss for words here, but you get what I mean.
Yeah.
There's something there to take away from it. It's good. But yeah.
I guess like with because we get back on Transformers is actually something I am very interested about, because again you've been doing Starscream now for 5 years. I think about.
Yeah, just about. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was it like when you got that phone call saying, "Hey, you're Starscream"? Like,
boy. So the showrunner of Combiner Wars was Eric Calderon, and I was in a supermarket in Forest Hills, Queens, and I get a phone call. I'd submitted my audition, met him at a train show and whatnot. I get the phone call. They're shopping my girlfriend. Like, I gotta take this, right? So I walk outside into the parking lot. I'm standing next to the dumpsters, and Eric says, "Well, I'm sorry. I'm calling to let you know. I mean, it's not a good call, but we're just not sure what we want." And I said, "Well, what do you want? What did you have in mind?" And he's like, "Well, I had. Do you know Game of Thrones? There's this character named Varys." I'm like, "Do I know Game of Thrones?" It started a little back and forth where he's like, but he's a little bit like this. Oh, and there's a little bit of the original Starscream. And we're going back and forth. And he says, "Okay, hold on. I gotta go. I gotta get somebody on the phone." And he gets, I believe it was FJ, who's the showrunner of the subsequent series, and they talk. He has me go back and forth and do the whole thing again. And again, I'm standing next to dumpsters at night in the middle of Queens, New York, and they're calling me from Hollywood to talk about Transformers. And so I'm like, he's like, "Okay, all right, hold on. I got to call our casting director, right?" Because he was like, "Oh, that's what I've been looking for," or whatever, right? And I'm like, little 7-year-old version inside of me doing backflips. And so my girlfriend comes out with the groceries. I say, "Sorry, I didn't help you carry those." We load them up in the car. It is the longest drive ever to go back to the apartment. And I get the call, and I'm walking around the neighborhood. He says, "Hey, they just casting director just let me know she works for me, so congratulations, you got the part." And I was on a plane the next day.
wow.
And recording the next day. And from there, it is just a beautiful piece of music. Thank the maker, they had me back. And one of the great things about Starscream, if you guys at home don't know, is he's got an immortal spark. So if you kill him, he's a ghost. And that's from the old show. And then in various iterations, they play with that. So he dies in that first series, but then comes back as a ghost in the next series and haunts another character. And I ended up playing both characters. So I was like, I was Starscream, and then I was Trypticon, and then I was Starscream haunting Trypticon. And it was cool because I got to do kind of like the weird sort of the two voices together, where like, "It was
They had two Starscream, and
going that way. But yeah, the original Starscream was not supposed to sound like G1 Starscream. It was supposed to be a mixture of Varys and a bunch of other sort of specifications when I figured it out.
So that Starscream was very sort of measured and not so highfalutin and screaming all the time. It's just in the name, really.
And there's this great moment, if you don't mind me going down a little tangent here, in that first in Combiner Wars, where Jason Marnocha as Megatron, he realizes what Starscream's up to, because he's a reformed Starscream in the beginning of this, which is why he's supposed to sound like so grounded. And he says something, well done, Starscream, or like, well done, Starscream, whatever Jason sounds like. And that's when I was allowed to kind of switch into a more Lotta like Starscream. He's like, I know you. He starts, I'm going to scream into my mic, and the gain is way too high for me to do that to your ears. But yeah. So that's when I was like,
No, son of a mother.
Something. I forget the line, but it's like, yeah, he's like, it's pretty great. And that was his PTSD from G1, because this was supposed to be a sequel to G1. That series, I think, was 50 years in the future of Generation 1, and which is consequently, I guess, 250 years before Beast Wars. I think Beast Wars is 300 years after the end of G1, and G1 ends in the mid 2000s. So, unless you're going by the comics and time travel involved,
the Transformers chronology is really weird. So,
God. That's one of the things I loved so much about Beast Wars. And a buddy of mine, Ben Yee, actually had something to do with that too. I think he was one of the advisors or something, because they were just dropping things in there. They said like, "Oh, Primus." They said Primus. Let's put Primus in. Oh, let's do this. And like they had a plan. It wasn't totally willy nilly, but they were things that like the fans are like, "Aha!" But that's from the comics, and that's from the TV show. How are these things going together? So they kind of made this sort of like unified theory of Transformers without realizing it, solidifying like the origin when and then they play with that when doesn't Rat Trap say something about my great aunt RC or something like that?
Something like that.
Brilliant. Freaking brilliant.
Yeah.
I saw a custom someone did of the Kingdom Rat Trap figure in pink with RC's head the other day, and I'm like, I know what you're doing. I see you. It's great. God, that's the fun about when you're a big old nerd and you're in the industry, which I don't understand how you can't be a fan of these things. It's amazing,
Yeah, no, I find it interesting when I interview voice actors and they're like, yeah, I wasn't really into cartoons when I was a kid, or there have been a few, which I find really interesting when they're like, yeah, I wasn't really that into cartoons when I was a kid, or things like that, or I wasn't into comics or that kind of stuff.
And that's fine. Everybody has a different path of how you get to this amazing career that we're in, like there's no wrong way, like there's a lot of people will they'll hold, well, how do you get into voice acting? And there's like a standard answer all the time. It's different for everybody. And in the same vein, I never played Ride to Hell Retribution. I didn't know that story. So like it's just as like when I'm a kid and I hear, well, Mark Hamill doesn't watch Star Wars every day. Like, of course he doesn't watch Star Wars every day. That's my job. Yeah. Like God, all the Star Trek actors, I'm not Spock. No, I am Spock. How many books are you going to put out? I'm kind of Spock. I used to be Spock. There you go. I'm going to stop talking. I'm talking too much.
I know people where they like, it's one of those things where I know people that don't watch the things that they're in, and I know a lot of people that don't do that, because I know some people that are like, I just think it's weird to watch things that I'm in, like, or they just think it's weird hearing themselves back or things like that later, and they're like, oh, why'd they use that take, or what, like, why'd they do that, like.
We all do that, don't we?
I mean, I'm the weirdo that actually really enjoys watching things that he's in, like, a lot. Because
that's cool.
It's not even that, like, it's because I'm enjoying what I'm in. It's just like, I'm like, that's me. It's just kind of like that. Like, I don't know. There's just always this joy in just hearing my voice in something. Like, I don't know. I just always get this kick of being like, that's me.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely things that I've been in that I haven't gotten to see, But yeah, it's you never stop being grateful that you get to scream into a tiny room to pay the rent too, and it blows your mind, man.
And I guess with that, I'm curious because well, there's the Cuphead show, which may or
Oh
may
boy,
not be
yeah.
coming out this year. We don't like. There's still not a lot of. I don't think there is an exact date as of right now.
Yeah, I don't think there
But
is yet.
yeah, I don't think there is. And I mean, I don't know how much you're allowed to talk about. I think that's the other thing because
I could talk about it. I mean, I'll tell you right now, I'm not a person who laughs when they read things, and I have laughed out loud at every single script that I've gotten for that show. So, I mean, for the three people that know me in real life, that means something, I guess. But yeah, it's really good. It's like really good, and the people making it love what they're doing and are amazing at what they're doing, and the rest of the cast is just like I. I'm almost at a loss for words at how amazing it is, and I know I'm using a lot of hollow words here that can apply to anything, but it is basically as close to time travel, I think, as I'm going to get, because it is very much born out of those Fleischer cartoons, the old Disney cartoons. We were talking about like dream rolls and stuff before, right? I would say Mugman is an amalgam of all of the old Looney Tunes and Fleischer and all these things that I watched as a kid that I dreamed about. And I get to originate a voice for that. It is like going back in time to the 20s or 30s and doing that. But the humor works today because the humor is not dated. The humor is it is whip smart, but has that feel of you're watching one of those types of cartoons where everything's kind of moving. And I've seen like bits and pieces and stuff. I've not seen final stuff yet, so I can't speak to that. But I will say that if it's even a fraction of how good it's been in just looking at animatics and stuff, oh boy, it is full of stars.
I mean, that's kind of the
1,000
genius.
more.
That's kind of the genius thing I think of a lot of older cartoons is that a lot of it's not dated. Which you would think like a cartoon from
Yeah.
80 years ago would have like maybe like dated humor or things of the time, which there are. There's Looney Tunes cartoons where there are jokes that I still don't get. Like or
Yeah.
it's like a line or like a caricature that I don't know who that person is or things of that nature, but it's so funny to me that it was just Fleischer and Friz Freleng and Chuck Jones and
Yeah.
who made Woody Woodpecker? I'm angry at myself now. I can't remember. Walter Lantz.
It was
Walter Lantz.
MGM launch. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Walter Lantz. Like I love that they just were like, what's funny? Not what's current. What's funny? I think that's the thing I find so interesting about a lot of cartoons from back then.
And it's timing. A lot of it is timing.
What's the thing? Like Tom and Jerry is like the king of slapstick timing. Like I do not know how, because Looney Tunes to me is like the perfect old cartoon. Like Looney Tunes to me is like my favorite of all of that era of animation. But Tom and Jerry, I think in terms of just pure slapstick, it's I don't know. I think even Looney Tunes sometimes the slapstick wasn't amazingly funny. Tom and Jerry, it's like beat for beat, everything is funny with Tom and Jerry. And I don't know how they did that so consistently for so long when Hanna-Barbera were working on it.
Yeah.
Like it's absolutely brilliant.
It is, and it survives. It ages well because of that crackerjack timing, and that cannot be that doesn't ever age. I mean, making a reference to a celebrity, like gosh, if a kid today watches Animaniacs, which I loved to death, they're going to see all of these references to actors from the 90s and not know what they're talking about. In the same way that when I was a kid, my parents had me watching black and white movies all the time, so I happened to know who was Bugs Bunny was doing an impression of here and there. But the average person watching that in the 80s, like, I don't know who these people are. I never saw Casablanca. What are you talking
yeah,
about? You know?
like there's I remember the Elmer Fudd short where he's trying to get like a rabbit suit for Humphrey Bogart. Like no
Yeah.
kid's gonna know who Humphrey Bogart is anymore.
But it's
Like,
still funny because of the way they did it
Yeah.
and the timing and the delivery of Mel Blanc. Like it's all timing. I was kind of related here. Sorry, I'm Goldbluming. We were watching the old Bob Newhart show. Not Newhart, not the one in
not the 90s
Vermont.
Bob Newhart
Yeah,
show.
which is brilliant, but that's not the one we were watching. And it was the episode with him and his father and his mother. His parents were like kind of separated, and they get back together and stuff. But him and his father talking. I mean, the whole show in general. But I was watching this one scene, and I was thinking like how well this works in 2021. Like, humor has not changed, because a lot of times I'll say a sitcom even as recently as the 70s won't land as much here because we're edgier, we're quicker, our humor is more like watching Community, which is like whip smart and a reference here and there and this like hyper intellectual. Like, I'd say that because I like Community, but like listening to these almost borderline Catskill humor, the play on words, the timing, how quickly you shoot back. Good God, Bob Newhart is a genius, and it survives just as well today because I haven't seen it in a long time. We're revisiting it, and it's just as funny as watching Cheers in the 80s to like Community. That's the one I'm thinking about now, because that never gets old. That muscle is the same muscle that people are using today.
Right. Is I mean, there's things from the 70s where I think there have been things that have dated, but there's some stuff in the 70s that is still very good. Like, I personally think Laugh-In has dated very badly in like current times, because I think Laugh-In was a lot of the humor of Laugh-In I think was too current, to the point that now I think most people would not get the large majority of what they're talking about on Laugh-In.
I can see
day
that.
and age. And they did like a Laugh-In special, like they did like an anniversary special a couple years ago, and I watched it and I was like, yeah, this really doesn't land with a lot of humor now. Like this really doesn't land. This is very dated jokes, like, or it's very dated types of delivery. But like I can still watch The Addams Family is still funny to me. Like,
Yeah.
The Addams Family is still ridiculously funny, but I think it also helps that everybody on that show was so John Astin. Sean Astin's his son. It's John Astin. I don't know what kind of person John Astin is, but every character I've ever seen him play and every interview I've ever seen, I would not be shocked if John Astin is like the nicest person on the planet from everything I've ever seen him do. Because he just
It seems it.
he enjoys everything. He clearly enjoys everything he does, like, just by
That's awesome.
watching him.
That's
Like,
fantastic.
I think, you remember the episode of Tales from the Crypt with John Lovitz when he's like a theater director?
Oh my
or
God,
something?
yes, I do.
Yeah, and like John Astin is like the head of like this theater troupe at this building, and it turns out it's like an insane asylum of cannibals or something like that. And like
It
John
has
Astin,
been a
like,
minute.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, man. God, my
like John
brain
Astin
is
like
pulsating.
John Astin ends up like killing him, or like John Lovitz or something like that.
Wow.
It's like,
We
it's the same-
just rewatched a bit of Night Court. Night Court is another one where you want to talk about crackerjack timing. That was there. There's some things in there, and there's some like funny sight gags and stuff too. But like, it's damn it. I'm sorry. You mentioned John Lovitz. I love John Lovitz too. These are all like, it doesn't matter if it's voice acting or just a sitcom comedy. Timing is king, and there's just the specific timing that John Lovitz has. Particularly The Critic. I loved The Critic so
The
much.
Critic is fantastic.
To this day, my go-to like expression of alarm is hachi machi, and I forget. It's become so ingrained in my brain that I forget until someone like points out, critic. I'm like, what? Oh, yeah, right. Jay Sherman says that. Okay, right. Hachi Machi. I should go back and see if I've actually said it within this episode. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like, there's so much of that too that you or I would have in the back of our minds when we're building a character, as sort of like a recipe. There's so many like, well, how much Steve Martin do I need here, and how much John Candy do I need from these comedy greats that we watched growing up, along with the voice actors who were such inspirations to us. And it all comes together in one big giant mishmash in your mind to rearrange to kind of understand that human condition a little better, right? And to get too highfalutin about it, but yeah, it's when you're a fan of these things, those are in your arsenal to learn from, and to hopefully, like a little file cabinet up there, grab bits out when you need to be, making a character on the fly in the middle of a session and stuff. And man, is it fun!
I mean, I think in terms of, I think, inspiration for a lot of comedy, or at least a lot of influence that people use. I mean, British comedy, I think, is like the top for most people.
Yeah.
Like Monty Python. Monty Python amazes me to this day that it is still, like, I piss my pants laughing at some Monty Python sketches still, like, just from Flying Circus alone. Like, I mean, Life of Brian is, like, one of my favorite movies. But, like, Flying Circus is, like, 50 years old, and it's still, like, one of the funniest shows ever made.
It holds up. It holds up like it was made yesterday.
Or, I mean, my favorite show of all time is Red Dwarf. That's my favorite.
Nice.
That's my favorite TV show of all time. Because
Sweet.
that's in my opinion, that's perfect. That is the most perfect camaraderie of actors I've ever seen in my life. Is all four of the main actors on that show.
Have you ever put a big letter H on your forehead for Halloween or something?
I have debated it before. It'd be
an
easy.
awesome.
It'd be easy.
Rimmer.
All you need is a red jacket and an H. That's all you need.
Good. Yeah, I feel like, without Red Dwarf, we wouldn't have Farscape. Without Farscape, we wouldn't have had Guardians of the Galaxy. And there's everything sort of informs each other there. God, I used to watch Red Dwarf on public television, Channel 21 and Channel 31. The reason why I had a television in my room, I was like the only kid, I had this little old black and white television in my room, was because there were like 4-hour blocks of Doctor Who on Fridays and Saturdays. And I had to watch them all. My parents didn't want the TV to be caught up with that, so I had this little thing that was in the garage. And I would watch Doctor Who, but before that, there was Blake Seven and Red Dwarf. And then if you stayed up too late, they put on Flash Gordon. But then if you tuned in too early, you would watch Allo Allo and Are You Being Served and all these like British TV. It was infested with Britcoms, and I loved them. And that's a very particular type of humor, going into what you were saying about Monty Python. So again, that's something that is somewhere clunking around in the back of my head, and your head from watching these things at a young age, and it's brilliant. It's just like another piece of vegetable to put into the stew, to grab from. Hello, Hello is really funny. Did you ever see that one?
No, I have not heard of which one was Hello, Hello? Was
Hello, Hello? It took place during World War II in France in a restaurant. And man, I mean, I haven't seen it since I was a kid. If there's terrible, hateful things in it, I apologize. I've not seen it in a long time.
Oh, it's like I watched Faulty Towers a couple years ago, and I mean, there's some iffy things in Faulty Towers going back to it, but I mean, Faulty Towers is still really funny. Like,
God, and they referenced that in Doctor Who, didn't like during the Tennant run, didn't like Donna do some kind of like Barcelona? It's from Barcelona.
They did. I haven't watched the Tenet run in a long time, and even then, I didn't watch a lot of Tenet, but I did watch a fair bit. So,
gosh.
But Blackadder's another really big one.
Oh, yep.
That I'm a giant fan of. Blackadder. Well, anything Rowan Atkinson, I'm a huge fan of.
Oh gosh, Mr. Bean. Even the movie Rat Race, he was really funny in Rat Race as the Italian.
Rat Race.
That was good.
I love Rat Race so much. That's like such a. I mean, I think the
good
ending,
ensemble cast.
Yeah, no, I think the only thing I don't like about Rat Race is I think the ending is kind of a cop out. I think that's like my one like major problem I have with it. But
give us a different time.
Yeah, no, I think it's Like, that's a great movie. I mean, that's basically just a remake of Mad World.
Yep.
It's like just a modern remake of that, basically.
Absolutely.
Which you don't see comedies like that anymore. They don't do big, massive ensemble movies anymore. They don't do like, and not even like comedy actors. They don't do like 20 actor comedies anymore. Like, here's all these like A-list actors in this comedy together. Like, you don't see Tom Hanks and Simon Pegg and Benedict Cumberbatch and Meryl Streep all in a comedy together anymore. Like,
I want to see that movie. Dude, that's your pitch. Benedict Cumberbatch and Meryl Streep. It's a buddy cop film. Simon Pegg is the chief. Oh, speaking of Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, the Truth Seekers was canceled. Have you did you watch that?
No, which one was that? After Spaced Out? That was the show.
Oh
they
my
did.
God.
That was before. Was that Space? It was called Spaced Out, wasn't it? Wasn't that?
Yes.
That was the first thing. They did together.
Spaced was a show from a while back. Yeah, and that's brilliant. This was a new show, just within the past year, and especially if you liked like unsolved mysteries and that sort of stuff, it was very X-Filesy. He was like a cable repair guy or something, and also on the side he had a paranormal channel on YouTube, and he would do investigations and stuff. This was Nick Frost, and there was like secret societies, and I kid you not, they incorporated real conspiracy theories of like number stations and stuff, like actual things that people are ponder about. And like a lot of the stuff I talked about on the radio show, they would bring up with the proper names. And it was funny, and it was a fun drama. It was a very good show. And it got canceled.
I'm looking at the cast of this. How have I not heard of this? Like Malcolm McDowell and Emmy Darcy. How have I not heard of this?
Oh my, yeah, he plays the father. Yeah, watch it. I forget which streaming service is on. They're not paying me to say this.
It says Amazon.
But it was very good, and I was very sad. I saw Nick Frost made the announcement on an Instagram or something, but. Yeah, it was good. It was really sad. We did an escape room. There was a company that did an escape room that was connected to it. I don't know if they're doing it anymore. That's a weird experience. A remote escape room via Zoom. This is the world we live in now.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
And since they're like technicians or cable technicians or whatever, not cable technicians, what I forget, internet technicians. They had it so that it was someone from the company that we were directing to move through the escape room. And it's such a cool idea, like, and then we would have like, can you go and do this? And then there were assets that they would give you, like an image would unlock, and there would be like a wealth of something. So there's like almost a video game aspect to it. What a great idea that is, though. Yeah, it was revolved around that show. So we like kind of binge watched it right before. Actually, yeah, we watched it. I think they piecemealed it. But anyway, check it out. I think you would really like it, man.
Yeah, it's on Amazon, so it's like I would assume because I have Amazon Prime. So
yeah,
I'm surprised I haven't heard of this.
Yeah, it was not like really popularized because like we found out, my girlfriend found out about it and was just like, hey, do you know about this? And like it was almost coming out at the time. But yeah, it was like right up until the time that it actually dropped. But yeah.
Curious because I mean I was thinking when did season 2 of The Boys come out? Because I was thinking maybe that overshadowed it when I'm looking at the dates.
Yeah.
They were about a month apart when they both came out, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they just didn't advertise it very much because I was thinking maybe if it came out around the time The Boys came out, that might have overshadowed it.
It's funny you say that. I love The Boys. Both seasons were unbelievably amazing. The only problem I have is that the story, and it's not the fault of the show The Boys because it's the comic that it's based on. The story was so similar to season 2 of The Tick that was also on Amazon.
Yeah,
big corporation, superheroes.
Supposedly they canceled The Tick for The Boys. And that's
now, is that true?
Yes.
Is that true?
Supposedly that's the story is that The Tick got canceled because of
you are validating me because in my mind I'm like, well, maybe they stopped The Tick because The Tick was really good. And that second season was
The Tick.
Amazing.
Like I thought
God,
it was fantastic.
Serafinowicz is he is The Tick, and I honestly, every iteration of the Tick is the Tick.
Oh yeah,
I want
I mean,
crisis of infinite ticks.
Patrick Warburton is debatably my favorite, but
So good. Man. But yeah, that show got so good towards in its second season. God, I love how he molts the old costume to get a more comic accurate costume. Like he's literally, there's like flakes of the old like body armor, action packed superhero costume. Ah, it was so good. But yeah, it was a little bit it was a little similar. Very different things that they did with that, but the bones of like, a company running superheroes. Yeah, and I always wondered. That's interesting. So you heard that is true. That's why.
Supposedly, it's not. I don't think it's been 100% confirmed, but I think a lot of people pointed out the timeline kind of adds up for when the Tick was canceled to like when The Boys was announced or something like that.
I love the Tick. I got God, not too long ago, I was at a convention and Ben Edlund like drew the Tick for me and stuff, and yeah, it was a good show. They were all good.
One of the earliest interviews I did, I think, like back in my first year of college, I interviewed Townsend Coleman, who was
nice.
Oh, he was so nice. I think that's like one of my favorite people I've ever interviewed because he was just so nice.
That's awesome.
And I remember there was a I think he cut out at one point, and I kept this in the interview. I debated taking it out, but I showed it to friends, and they were like, "No, keep that in. It's too funny. You have to keep that in the interview." But at one point, he cut out. There was a problem with his connection, and we were talking about the Tick at the time that he cut out, and he just came back and he was like, "What happened?" And I was like, "Oh, that was just a glitch." It was just a technical glitch. That's fine. And he just goes, "Evil glitch. I am the Tick." Like he just did that out of the blue. It was fantastic.
That's awesome. Oh, that's great.
But yeah, I gotta say, thank you so much for doing this. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a blast, man.
I gotta say,
thank you for asking.
Yeah, is there any advice you could give to people that are interested in pursuing a career in voiceover or anything of that nature?
Love what you do and keep taking a hack at it. Keep hacking away, but you gotta love it. And if you do, it'll work out.